It's 11 o'clock on the next night. So 11 o'clock on Thursday, the 21st. I've been up for a couple of hours. I was bedridden all day as a consequence of the headache again. Um, I think that at the very least, I'm developing enough evidence to suggest that the headache may have something to do with a lifestyle decision. I've got three options coming out of last night. I think probably the most suspicious is the nicotine. Um, as has been the case with the shows that I've been going to, I had 3 cigarettes last night. Generally, if I'm out, I might have 2 or 3. I had 3. It was between sets. Not particularly different than what I've been doing the last little bit, but I think that's a couple of times now that I've come home and not felt so good afterwards. So I think that's a lesson. I think it's getting there. The next step would be I need to actually the next show that I go to, I need to ensure that I'm not smoking any cigarettes and see what I feel like when I come back. So I didn't get a chance to do any cleaning in here because I slept all day, bedridden with the migraines. I didn't have any of the really bad symptoms today. No hallucinations, no aphasia, no aura, nothing like that. I did wake up though to something that I have never seen before, which is a cockroach in this room. Honestly, in almost 3 years, I have never seen a cockroach in this room. So that is suggestive of a larger population growth level behind here. We went to that before, so I sprayed in behind on the outside of the room there, and I sprayed all around the corners. So that should prevent them from entering this room for the next little while anyways. I think that with these particular, and I'm going to leave the lights on, as well as the heat on, but I'm going to leave the lights on for a bit, in order to deal with that as well. I will need to do the cleaning this afternoon. This is going to be a 2-dayer, starting, well, it's going to be 21 and 22, right? So I'll be awake all day tomorrow. Geez, I got real cold in here all of a sudden. So yeah, I mean, it was actually nice when I woke up. It was nice and toasty, but then it just got freezing with no warning. I think that with these bugs, they are seasonal. The roaches, they seem to come. Well, they seem to come in at the same time every year, and I make a couple adjustments, and they go away. Whatever it is, it's well, I mean, it seems like these are actually insects that prefer it outside. That's what I understand about the oriental cockroaches, is that they would actually rather be outside, but they come inside in the spring, either like when they're coming out of, I don't want to call it hibernation, they'll go into like the suspended state. It's quite remarkable if you want to look into it, if that's the kind of thing you like. Why is that? See, this is another, like, it looks to me like there's been some playing around down here. All that stuff is designed to block the holes off. It's more designed to stop things from getting in there than it is stop things from getting out there, but that shouldn't, the blue shouldn't be sitting out like that. I'll have to readjust that. I'm strongly considering asking Dave to take away the guy's keys. I think that might, or the property owner, um, to take away his brother's keys, because he can't be doing this. But as I've stated a few times, I don't think he has the mental capacity to explain that to him. I think that if you explain it to him, like, he might say he gets it, but he won't actually get it, and he'll just keep doing it. Because I ultimately don't think that he really understands that you can't be doing that, right? Like, he might know that it's, you're not supposed to enter a unit without, the tenant's permission, but I don't think he really understands that, right? Anyways, for now I'll just put that away. I mean, how do you prove it, right? I might set up some cameras down here, maybe. I don't know. I'm seriously thinking about it. But either way, like I say, it's around 11. I'm going to be doing some odds and ends, and then the cleaning that I meant to do yesterday will be done today. I think that I would rather go to a show next week than see the theater tomorrow. I don't. Their new record is really, like, it's gone like mall punk, and I'm not really a fan of mall punk. So, and the other two bands don't look really very good either. So I'm gonna skip tomorrow, or today as it would be. And there's a show at the Trumpleplex next week that I'm more interested in. I think I'll have that instead. But yeah, there's still no signs of any bed bugs, but the roaches seem to be building up on the other side of that wall, and I'm going to need to dedicate the next 48 plus hours to ensuring that I'm doing everything I can to keep them out. So let's look at some things that Hillary said. We've got two here. It's around midnight. One of the major accomplishments in the execution of this responsibility occurred in 1998, when the Congress passed and my husband signed into law the International Religious Freedom Act. That was a Republican Congress. That act incorporated, as a foundational element of United States foreign policy, the ideals of religious freedom on which our own nation was founded, and it required our government to designate a nation as a country of particular concern if the nation's government had either engaged in or tolerated particularly severe violations of religious freedom, defined as systematic, ongoing, and egregious violations of freedom of religion as outlined in international human rights documents. That helped to put the spotlight on countries that were not living up to the ideals or even their stated commitment in their own documents to religious freedom. Now, that requires quotes all over it. Scare quotes, in fact. People that pay attention know that this is just all a lot of propaganda. What I'm trying to draw attention to is the fact that Hillary is more than willing to play ball with the religious fundamentalists in the Republican Party. She'll, go ahead and sign into law any ridiculous thing that they want to throw at her if she thinks she can win a couple of votes from some evangelicals. In fact, I think she may even. I think all evidence suggests that she is not just doing it for votes, but that she actually believes it. Right? This is. It might be hard to try to figure out what Hillary actually believes because she's a pathological liar. But if there's anything that she said in public that she actually believes, it's the right-wing religious dogma. I think that that's really the only thing that you can really pin on her, and pin on her with any confidence, is that she is a fundamentalist Christian, and that she's more than willing to toe the line on all of this, dog whistle nonsense. In truth, This is just a lot of language that's used to uphold, um, expansionist foreign policy, you know, uh, you know, racist policies, in various senses, to work up white um, uh, supremacist support, for certain. It's the kind of thing that, they'll talk about how the Christians in Lebanon are being, persecuted, while, the the disproportionate levels of attacks on Shia or Sunni or whatever the conflict is this week, um, is raging out of control, right? All of these initiatives and all of the language is always focused so that when they talk about religious freedom, what they mean are white Christians, and the initiatives are invariably used to advance um, American interests in the region. Kind of, um, I think the way that most younger people are going to understand this, um, if they don't pay attention to this, is it's very much like the Coney fiasco from a few years ago. Um, and actually, that's something that I think would be interesting to look and see what Hillary says about that as well. I am very grateful that I had a grounding in faith that gave me the courage and the strength to do what I thought was right, regardless of what the world thought. This is the smart one, that you're supposed to feel okay about having their finger on the button. Does that if somebody had told you that George W. Bush said that, I bet you would believe them, wouldn't you? I sure would. But I just want to remind you, over the next few months, you're going to hear all kinds of horrible things about Donald Trump. And most of them will be true, on at least some level. But what you're not going to hear, and are going to have to constantly remind yourself, is that almost all of it applies equally well to Clinton. So, for example, consider the border fence. Terrible policy, sure. But Clinton's policy is in fact essentially identical. She's a lot less crude about it, but she favors continuing Obama's mass deportation policies. One candidate is being sold to white xenophobes that blame minorities for class inequality, whereas the other is being sold to minority voters that blame white people for class inequality. You see the trick there? Blaming each other for the oppression from the wealthy. But the policies are not actually meaningfully different, and they're not. Okay, if you're not fully expecting Clinton to deport even more people than Obama, the truth is you're not paying attention. Or you could look at Iran. Hillary is, in fact, itching to bomb Iran. She's entirely in line with the John McCains and the Dick Cheneys. She's a total neocon, okay? Now, there is a difference in appearance. Clinton knows a little about the situation, so she's, at least marginally informed, whereas Trump is just trying to sound tough. He doesn't really know what he's saying at all. But there's no reason to expect any real substantive policy difference, right? It might come off as a difference. One knows more about what they're saying than the other, but at the end of the day, I wouldn't expect the actual outcome to be at all different. And you can go down this list for a while. You won't pull out much of a difference, and you really won't. The few things where there is a difference, like trade or, war. And when I say war, I mean, maybe I should have said foreign policy. Maybe ought to lean you towards Trump, if you're an actual leftist, that is, and don't just like wearing the shirt and the hipster status attached to it. Clinton's policies don't make any sense from a left-wing perspective, right? They have nothing to do with the left. They're absolute moderate, if you even want to call them moderate, but conservative, without any question, policies on trade, her foreign policy. I've been over this repeatedly. This is a reminder message, okay? If you actually have left-wing ideals, that are stronger than, being imprinted by Hollywood, and told what to think, you know, mass manufactured by the opinion industry. Um, if you have actually thought about this yourself and come to your own conclusions, you really couldn't look at the two candidates and conclude that Clinton is better, um, from an ideological perspective, unless you actually are a conservative. So, I mean, if you don't like Trump, that's fine. I don't like him either. I couldn't imagine voting for him. Just make sure you know where Hillary stands before you vote for her against Trump, if that's your logic, because you might be disappointed when you get exactly what you voted against. But hey, maybe you still think Obama is a peace candidate too? You should have never thought that. The truth is, he couldn't have been more clear. He will destroy America's enemies. That's what he said, loudly, clearly, and with just a little bit of fascistic flair on top of it. So, the question, will Bernie Sanders run as a third-party candidate? Well, I've been asking this question myself a couple of times over the last few days. Oftentimes when I respond in this kind of format, it reveals maybe a more concise type of thinking. So this is what I suggest. See, I think he would have stopped already if he wasn't planning on running as a third party. But I also think he's waiting to make the choice. If June comes around and she's 20 points ahead nationally, well, no, he won't run. What's the point? She's clearly beating him, right? But if June comes around and he's beating her by 10 points, if it looks like he can win, then yeah, I think he probably will run. And while we know that growth is not infinite, the truth is that the direction of the curve suggests that he very well may be 10 points ahead of her in June. Now, I do think he'll do everything he possibly can to win the nomination. If he can take it, if he can win it, he'll take it, right? It's a lot easier from his perspective to run as a Democrat. If she's not running, then I mean that makes the field a lot easier for him, etc. Right? That's the whole logic behind it in the first place. But I do have to think that he knows his odds, and if he wasn't seriously considering a third-party run, like what the hell is he doing, right? So what else would he be planning around? Why else would he be doing this? Why wouldn't he have quit and gone back to his Senate position, right? It depends on everything, of course. That's what I'm trying to say, is that it depends on everything. But the thinking has to be that he gets to the convention pretty close in delegates and has all the momentum and then marches the left out of the party once and for all. And I think that should be supported and applauded. I've been over this repeatedly as well. I think the United States needs a three-party system, and I hope that Sanders does exactly that. If he can't win, then, take them out. And like I say, if he does happen to walk into June or August, if he walks into June and he's winning by 10 points, and he walks into August and he's winning by 20 points, I mean, just consider the scenario. You're at the convention. National polls have been consistent for weeks that Bernie Sanders is beating Hillary Clinton by more than 10 points. Consider that scenario. Why wouldn't he run? If he's beating her, right? And I think that instead of being afraid about splitting the vote, he should run and blame it on her because he's beating her. Now I know this makes a mockery of the primary process. I think that the primary process deserves to be made a mockery of. Um, it's it's a clearly corrupt process. People aren't able to vote. Um, there's obvious cheating, etc., etc. I have no problem making a mockery of the primary process. I have no problem making a mockery of the Democratic Party. And I think that people that are open-minded and able to analyze evidence should actually agree with that position. Anybody who's telling them to just, that you're going to split the vote, I don't think these people are really. I mean, okay, we're not there yet. Let's not get ahead of ourselves. But if it comes up to that point, um, I think the right argument is to say that, um, sorry, Hillary, but Sanders is beating you in national polls. I know that you won the process, but the process is not legitimate, and you should step down. Um, I think that not only do I think that that's not sacrilegious or disrespectful or whatever else, I think it's long overdue. And I hope that he follows through with it. But it necessitates certain numbers to appear, right? If the convention comes up and she's winning by 20 points, then it's time to go home, right? So I suggested that either Kasich would win every state on the 26th, or Trump would sweep the delegates. I don't think there's a state on Tuesday that Cruz can finish second in, but it doesn't look like anybody's taking a serious run for Kasich either. So it looks like Trump's going to sweep. The results on Tuesday are going to be similar to the results from New York. It wasn't because Cruz insulted New Yorkers. Okay? That's not the reason that things turned out the way they did. It's because his policies are considered to be insane by people in the Northeast. I am more or less a Northeasterner, and I can see why they would think that. And Kasich in truth, is probably just not enough time. Okay, if Cruz had dropped out, Kasich would have been able to take a run. Even in a two-person race, Cruz never had a serious chance of getting to 30%, let alone winning. I've been over this a few times. I think that one of the biggest reasons why you don't see more movement to Kasich is because of Cruz. I think that there's a big percentage of people that see Trump as the moderate foil to Cruz's extremism. And what I was thinking was that if Kasich can get a little bit of a boost, if he could kind of get running a little bit, then a lot of that moderate support that is stuck with Trump right now in order to stop Cruz would jump over to Kasich, who is probably closer to what they really want. But there's a large amount of the Republican Party, especially in the Northeast, okay, that's making a pragmatic decision that Trump is better than Cruz. And that's really all there is to it. But if Cruz wasn't there, if the race was between Trump and Kasich, I think Kasich would have probably won. Right? The flip side of that is that Cruz is also taking quite a bit of right-wing support that would probably prefer Trump over Kasich. So it's hard to. You have to weigh that out, right? So I'm saying that Kasich probably would have won in a two-party race, but there's a possibility that enough support would have moved from Cruz to Trump that he would have won anyways. And so ideally you want to keep Cruz in, right, so that he's able to pull some of that support away and just do a lot of positive media on Kasich, right? I mean, that's the ideal, but it does not appear as though that has worked out at all. Even if it was clear from the very start that, it was never going to be Cruz. And I still think that Cruz will probably not break 30% in any of these states. Now, if you look at the projections for tomorrow, they throw around the number of 100 delegates for Trump. I'm saying tomorrow because it is, in fact, the 25th. But this was written on the 22nd. Let's see. So it should be on Tuesday. I think it's going to be closer to 150. And I'll go to that in a second. The hope was that Kasich could keep Trump under 50%, but it doesn't look like it's going to happen. Now, as for Bernie, what's going on in the Democratic primary for Tuesday? The harsh reality at this point is this. Do not expect him to win any states at all on the 26th. I would expect him to do better in the polling in Maryland due to bias, and that should hold there because the rules aren't as strict as New York, and if you do look it up, you'll see the predictions have consistently overestimated the effects of race. So I think the numbers have her ahead by 25 points or something. That's probably an exaggeration. But it's not going to be enough. If instead of being 25, it might look down to 10, right? The best case scenario, if he's lucky, he'll be able to split everywhere more, so that he doesn't get even further behind. Now that said, you'll note that my path, which had him win in the end, actually called for near splits on the 26th. Suggested that in the end he's got to come out with a positive balance. He's got to pick up about 50 delegates on the 26th, mostly in Pennsylvania, and that's in order to close the distance to what was going to be about 100. But that was built on a win in New York, taking him from 200 to 150, rather than a loss taking him from 200 to 250. Now, that said, mathematically speaking, it's not a disaster yet. On Wednesday morning, it might be a disaster, but it's not yet a disaster mathematically. There's still enough delegates up on the 26th that he could, in theory, make up 150 delegates on Tuesday and then get back on track. But that would be completely out of nowhere. The polling is not predicting that. Okay? Realistically, he should be able to walk out of the 26th with a difference less than 300. And he probably won't actually be able to do that. Moving forward, I expect her to win Indiana and West Virginia by substantial margins. Indiana will probably look like Ohio, and West Virginia will probably look like Tennessee. Unfortunately, that might be the first opportunity that I have to really rail against the models. It might be the first situation where the models are demonstrably wrong, like predictably wrong. I think it's a little late, and it doesn't really help my argument much, but it might be the first real serious evidence that I have, because there's a lot of coincidences that have asserted themselves, meaning that the next state he'll have a real chance to win, and it will be Oregon, which is the same day as Kentucky, which he'll probably lose in, so he'll probably end up splitting the day overall, and the difference will be nearly 400 delegates by the time he gets there. I don't like it either. I'm sorry, but that's what's happening here. And then I thought about that a little bit more, and I looked at some actual numbers, and I concluded that regarding Trump, the media is actually out to lunch. The fact is that the Republican nomination is over. It's not even close. Trump currently has 847. I figure that he'll probably get close to 160 on Tuesday. But let's round it down to 153 so we can say that on Wednesday morning he wakes up with 1,000 delegates. And then he gets around 250 more. Well, California and New Jersey are both winner-take-all states. He's almost certain to win both of them. And when you add it up, it's 220. Meaning he really only needs around 30. Now, if you look at Oregon, Washington, and New Mexico, these are all proportional states. There's 96 there. All he needs to do is get 30. Because they're proportional, that means he just needs to get 30% in those states. And I think it's quite likely that he will. So I'm suggesting that Trump can win the nomination without Indiana, without West Virginia, and without the 3 remaining likely Cruz states, which are Nebraska, Montana, and South Dakota. Presuming he does extremely well tomorrow, or on Tuesday, which is tomorrow, it seems that the media is not looking at numbers for the 26th properly. That seems to be the confusion. I don't know how they get that number of 100. I mean, you'd have to... Does he think Kasich is going to win in Delaware, or he's going to... or Maryland, or like, I don't know where they get those numbers. All polling that I've seen suggests that he should sweep, all 5 of the states. And that would mean he should get at least 150, right? And then that makes Indiana irrelevant, because he picks up 50 delegates on the 26th that the experts are not assigning to him, and then he doesn't need Indiana at all, right? So that's it. I think I'll probably win Indiana anyways. So, and if he does, and he does well in West Virginia, then he gets more than 1,300 delegates, and that's probably what it's going to end up looking like. Okay, he's not just going to get he's going to be substantially beyond it. He'll have a little bit of breathing room, even even if there is some bribery or some people that don't show up. It won't matter. He'll win anyways. So I think that it's as clear as day. The contests on the 26th are, as they usually are, mere formalities. Trump will all but cement his win, and Sanders will all but put himself out of contention. But as I've stated repeatedly, it doesn't mean I think that Sanders should drop out. Although maybe Ted might want to start thinking about going home. So it's about 3 o'clock, and I actually wasted the entire day picking at my face. There was another one, unfortunately. Hopefully that's the last one. But I ended up picking up a pair of tweezers the other day to deal with the last one. It was really necessary. There was no other way I was getting it out. And I had thrown the tweezers away previously because I was getting obsessed with it, and now I'm back at it. So I need to stop. I need to kind of accept that I lost the day, go to sleep, wake up, and just not do that until this is a really weird one because it's actually really far under the skin, and it's not coming out for a while, kind of thing. So I need to just not do that, and then go back to it later when I can, and forget about it for now. My face feels all funny because I've been ripping at it with a pair of tweezers all day. I was gonna say a pair of pliers, practically is. And then I wonder why do I have strange facial tics? Well, maybe it's because I'm ripping hair out of my face with pliers all the time. I exaggerate only mildly. Um, it's 16 degrees out and the air conditioner's on upstairs. It's great out. So, um, what do you do besides crank the heat? You know, it's ridiculous. And I've also determined that I'm not going to see Defeater today, which is a shame. Um, Part of me would like to go. It's just I'm looking at the set list, what they've been doing, and their guitarist just left. The last couple of records haven't been very good anyways, and it's just um, the impression that I'm getting is that the rest of the band wants to do more like brocore type stuff, and the guitarist kind of wanted to take off and not do it, or it was the other way around. But one way or the other, um, the last couple of like they've got a set playlist, and there's like one song that I may be really interested in. Right, top of that is going to be a half-hour set. So, and the other bands playing with them are not that good. So this is, I mean, I suppose if I had unlimited amounts of, see, this is one of those situations where I have to be a little bit conservative. Because if I had unlimited amounts of cash, I would go, no doubt. It's just I would rather go see a different show at the Trumpleplex on Wednesday. And I mean, I could probably do both. It's just if I do both, then I'd have to go sober to both. And I'd rather. I mean, this show just doesn't look that good. You know. Um, I'm gonna. I mean, there's 4 bands on the bill. Um, I'm gonna get a half hour out of the second of 4 bands. Um, they're really doing an opening slot, right? So I mean, like it's not worth my time. Even like they're not doing all new songs. They are doing some older stuff, but the older stuff is off. Like they had a sort of a classic record out in 2011, and they're not playing anything off of it. So I mean, I don't know what's going on with the guitarist, but whatever it is, it's not appealing to me personally. Maybe it's appealing to other people that like the more commercial side of their sound. But I was kind of I like the darker kind of old school aspect to it, and they seem to be moving away from that. So I'll see where they go with their next record. See if it's worth following or not. But I don't expect the show to be worth attending. So I'm not going. I will be hitting the show, like I said, on Wednesday at the Trumpleplex. We'll put everything aside for that. So I wanted to do some cleaning in here today. That didn't happen. In fact, my head's starting to hurt again. Maybe it's the air. It could be. Air conditioners throw out all kinds of shit. They're really quite disgusting things. Anyways, it seems as though I'm going to sleep. So that's that. And blew the day. I don't want to do that often, but it does happen from time to time. And wake up and start things anew.